We have just about 40 days until the NBA season once again will return. About a couple weeks ago, I made a video where I made some bold predictions, but in this video, I'm going to be predicting every single NBA award. Now, I'll repeat what I said in the way too early predictions video. These predictions are way too early to make, but honestly, it's just for the fun of it. But I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty spot on last year with some of my takes. Now, there are 8 total awards from what I could find, but I'm only doing 7 because the other one is like Teammate of the Year, and who gives a shit about that, to be honest. But regardless of that, let's start with a very simple one, the Rookie of the Year. I feel like every season there's really only 2 candidates and then some random guy pops in at the 3rd spot, but I think it's obvious it's going to be Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama is said to have a great rookie season, and honestly, I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen. I do think Scoot might have a slight edge because I think he's going to average more points, but I think Wemby is going to be a lot more better on the defensive side and overall just all around in his game. Also, let's face it, I think the media bias is definitely going to add up because Wemby is the big name to pick here, but of course, we have to see how the season turns out. I mean, do we remember 2019 Zion? Like, we all thought he was going to run away with it, but Ja Morant won it. But shit, let's just hope that Wemby can actually keep his dick in his pants, unlike Zion. The next award is the 6th Man of the Year, and I feel like there's really only one candidate I'm looking at right now, and that's Chris Paul. I will say, I think as far as the Warriors' success goes, trading for Chris Paul was just kind of a weird thing to do. I've seen reports that say they're going to start Chris Paul to start the season, but I don't think that's sustainable whatsoever. I give it to around game 20, maybe 30, he's going to start playing on the bench, and I think the Warriors are going to get better as a team. I mean, if Chris Paul literally sits on the bench, I think he's 100% going to win the award. I don't doubt that Chris Paul cannot have a great season as someone coming off the bench because he knows how to play a great role. The problem is that Chris Paul's never really came off the bench in his career, so it's going to be kind of a weird thing to try if you're Golden State. And if Chris Paul doesn't start for the entire year, then fuck it, give it to Lou Will. Guys, that is a joke. I know Lou Will is retired. I think the next award we got to talk about is the Most Improved Player of the Year, and funny enough, actually, both of these players were on the Team USA FIBA team, and that would be Mikal Bridges and Austin Reeves. I'm not gonna lie, I think this is gonna be a very close race, but if Mikal does exactly what he did on Brooklyn last year, then 100% it's gonna be Mikal. Remember, Mikal literally became a 26 points per game scorer as soon as he got to Brooklyn. You could say it was subjective because he did get traded to a team that really didn't have a #1 option, not to mention the Brooklyn Nets weren't exactly good, even though they did retain their playoff spot. But if all signs point to what happened at the end of last year, then 100% it has to be Mikal. But on the contrary, I think Austin Reeves could prove himself because he kind of became a meme player and then all of a sudden he became a pretty solid player for the Lakers that did help them in the playoffs, hence why he did get that pretty solid extension. Of course, I do think he has a couple flaws that he needs to work on, but other than those small things that can be worked on, I think Austin Reeves could possibly be the Most Improved Player of the Year. I will say if he did go to San Antonio, which was one of the teams that were rumored to be interested, then I'd probably give him the edge because just like Mikal, he would more than likely be the #1 option. But if I was to put money on it, then I would probably go with Mikal Bridges. I just think he has a way better chance, and it seems like he's set up to be the #1 option once again. Also, let's face it, Mikal with an entire year with this team, I think it's going to benefit him more than it's not going to benefit him. I don't even know what the fuck I was saying right there. We're just going to move on. The Coach of the Year award. Now, this one is kind of weird. Sometimes they give it to the best team in the NBA, which makes sense, or sometimes they go with the NFL route, which is just whatever has the best storyline that you could build up. So basically, we're either guessing who's going to have the best record or what's going to be the most interesting storyline. If we're going with the best team in the NBA, this is very subjective, but me personally, I'm just going to guess the Phoenix Suns. That, or you could even go with like Joe Mazzulla. But if we're going as far as a storyline, well, I think you have Adrian Griffin on the Bucks, so that's if the Bucks do well, of course. But you also have Mark DiGiovanno, Mark DiGiorno's Pizza. I'm cooked, bro. Alexa, what is the name of the OKC Thunder coach?
Mark Daigneault is the head coach.
That cannot be right, bro. Quan, how do you say the name of the... Bro, if you don't shut the... Yo, how do you say the name of the OKC Thunder head coach's name?
It's like Daigneault. It's Daigneault or something. I don't know, bro. Dag as in dagger. So Dag? As in Chris Paul hits so many dagger shots.
All right, so the Thunder's head coach, I think he also has a real possibility. That is if the Thunder can make the playoffs. But this is only for going as far as storyline because I don't think the Thunder are going to be anything above the 4 seed, and the 4 seed is kind of pushing it. But if I had to bet on one person, I'm going to go with the storyline here, and I'm going to guess Adrian Griffin. 1, because I think the Bucks are going to end up being the best team in the Eastern Conference, and number 2, I am not going to try to repronounce Mark DiGiorno Pizza's name. All trolls to the side, I think we have to talk about the next next award, which is the Defensive Player of the Year. The Defensive Player of the Year award is always weird to me. Like, statistically, there are players that I think should by far have a better chance to win it, but then they just give it to, I guess, the popular name. Like last year, they gave it to Jaren Jackson Jr. Don't get me wrong, he had a great season as far as defensive goes, but I don't know. I feel like there were other people that could have gotten it. This year, I think you can go one of two ways. You either have Jaren Jackson Jr. win it once again, or Anthony Davis. If I had to guess, I have a feeling that Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to get the Rudy Gobert treatment, where he just wins it for the next couple years. And to be honest, if Jaren Jackson Jr. does repeat the defensive season he had last year, then there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to once again win that award. I didn't want to spend too much time on that because now we have to talk about the Clutch Player of the Year award, which this one is very hard to predict. If I got like 5 games of the season, then maybe I'd be able to predict it, but I don't know. It's very weird to predict how this is going to go. Like, I don't think anyone expected De'Aaron Fox to win it last year, not because he was a good player, just because we didn't expect De'Aaron Fox and the Kings to have that kind of season. If you look up some of the betting odds, some people are saying De'Aaron Fox is going to repeat, and then next is like Shea and Luka. If I had to pick from those 3, I'd probably go with Shea. Shea has been a pretty clutch player in years prior, and honestly, I just think he has a better chance to win the award than De'Aaron Fox repeating. Now, the final award, and I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this, is the Most Valuable Player of the Year. This award is always very hard to predict because you never know what's going to happen, even though I feel like you could say that for this entire video. In my mind, there are 4 legitimate candidates that we could talk about, and of course, I could probably make a dedicated video about this, but honestly, I'd rather not do that because I don't want to waste your guys' time. My 4 candidates go as follow. I have Luka, Jokic, Booker, and Giannis. Luka is someone that is always in the running for MVP. Like, he's always there, and then just something happens. Like last year, his team kind of just sucked. Also, let's just face it, Jokic and Embiid were by far better than everyone else. No one else really had an opportunity. Giannis, similar to Luka, is someone always in the running, but I do think because of voter fatigue, he's probably not going to win it unless he is just by far better than everyone else. Jokic, because, well, it's Nikola Jokic, and this man has been nothing but an MVP candidate for the past like 3 seasons. And last but not least, I have Booker because I think Booker is going to have a breakout season, which I talked about in a video about a couple weeks ago. When I think of the MVP candidate, I usually like to think of which team is going to have the best season, which obviously in this case, it would make me want to pick Booker or Giannis. But in this case, I don't think that's going to happen. Out of the 4, I'm going to eliminate Giannis because of voter fatigue. I don't want to eliminate Jokic, but I have a feeling they're just not going to give him the award once again, which leaves us to Booker and Luka. If the Mavericks have at least a 3 seed or above, then easily I think it goes to Luka, but I'm not going to lie, I don't think the Mavericks are going to be that, and I think they're actually going to struggle for a majority of the year, which means that, yeah, I think Devin Booker is going to win MVP. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they have Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant, so they're not going to be able to let Booker score as many points, and sure, that does make sense in theory, but I've seen a lot of situations last year where Booker was the best player on that court, and he completely took over the game. KD, I feel like, is going to take a backseat to Booker this year, and Bradley Beal, I think he's just going to be more of a playmaking role than a scorer. So yeah, I think Devin Booker is going to win the MVP award. But also something that I predicted was Giannis is going to have a revenge season, which I made a video about it, so click the video on the screen right here.